Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us once again.
Thanks for being here one more time, you guys.
And another, hopefully. But hopefully it'll be about, good news and change really happening. Douglas D says the world is hurting for prayers so badly right now, and that is so true. There's so much going on right now. And we have to speak up. We really do have to speak up about everything that's going on at so many different levels. It's time.
I think speak up and really go within and try to calm these frequencies that are flying all over the place that feel that seem, well, they have me on edge. I'm not doing too good today. I feel like I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, there is that feeling. Boy, the skies are plastered today. Are you guys noticing that? I thought yesterday was bad. Today looks even worse. It's just a sea of gray out there. Just so much gray up in that sky.
And that's really kind of rare for around here. Usually we always have like really blue skies to the point where you're like, another blue sky. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. Here it's like the skies are always blue, but they've had them plastered for how many days now?
A lot, and I'm hearing that from people all over, UK and Michigan and Florida and, you name it, California as well. Blue sky there? Are you aware? Oh, man, I wish we were there. Where are you anyway?
Yeah, where are you? We want to know where the blue sky is.
I see gray in Ohio, gray, and more gray, says Paul P. It's been terrible in Florida, Judy K says. Who can see the moon? I can. Well, yeah, it's up. Nuclear quantum lasers in the house. Pew, pew, pew. Tennessee. Hello, Tennessee. California. Gray, UK. Gray in Boston. Blue sky in Portugal. That's beautiful. Portland, Oregon always has, you know what we're talking about, the C word. So it looks like Portugal and Spain are a good place to be today. Texas, sunny, warm, and blue. So, hey there, Scott. Good to see you. And everybody, Scott's the gentleman that put together our Discord. So we do have a Discord as well for you guys to always jump on in there. There's a link on Patreon to it under posts, and I'll put it up in this chat as well again. So guys, lots of going on. We have a lot of egotism going on, a lot of threats going on for sure. Here you see, this is out of RT, 35 vital U.S. and Israeli targets within Iran's reach for potential revenge for General Soleimani's death. Senior IRGC commander making that statement there. So Iran reserves the right to avenge the U.S. killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani, with dozens of potential targets already on the list. A senior commander within the elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard said, vital American targets in the region have been identified by Iran a long time ago. And, there's a lot of guesses as to what that would be. The commander did not name any specific targets, but mentioned that U.S. warships have been operating in the Strait of Hormuz, an important shipping route which connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean. And, it was Nostradamus made a prophecy that many have interpreted to be an attack on a U.S. fleet in the Persian Gulf. Perhaps even one that was nuclear, as some has suggested. So it really does feel like we're living in these prophetic times. And I really question everything. We were talking about that last night. Nostradamus, he was in there. He was up there with the bigwigs, he was hobnobbing with all of them. And he was a strong proponent of the Catholic Church. And, in his prophecies and all, He kind of envisioned a future where the rule of the monarchy would come back into fruition, and I just don't like that idea. I think our problem is that we are living in a world that's dominated by people with amazing egos.
Yeah, incredibly huge egos, and really big heads. And this is quite concerning to me. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a long, long time, so I don't know all the buzzwords. I don't know a lot of things, but I do know that this is something of great proportion. And I also think back to 9/11, where most people, they just bought anything. They bought into anything that the mainstream news told them. And, here's the thing. We don't even know for sure that this guy's dead. We're being told a lot of things on the news, but we really don't know exactly what's going on.
Right. So, and now, of course, we have U.S. sources coming out and saying that this general was planning a series of attacks and everything. And I think a lot of Americans don't buy it, honestly. So you have that there, 35 vital targets. And if we jump over here, we see President Trump. And, he's really pumping out the tweets today. He says, Iran's talking very boldly about targeting certain USA assets as revenge for ridding the world of their terrorist leader, who had just killed an American and badly wounded many others, not to mention all the people he had killed over his lifetime, including recently. Let's look back at the murder in Saudi Arabia of that journalist, Khashoggi was his name. And it's just widely known that the Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered it, but because of the fact that they are her number one military client, so to speak, and the money that they have, no repercussions there, none at all, and yet, you see this, it's obvious. There's way more going on than meets the eye, but so many people. It's so disconcerting how head in the sand they are. It's really amazing. And, some of the comments that I've seen in certain forums by people that are just absolutely ignorant and hateful, actually, to, say, oh, bring it on. Let's just, wipe out the country. God, some people, it doesn't seem like they have a heart, like they're not even really human, but just boggles the mind.
Well, to me, it looks like, everything's just escalating. They've had so many things that scream, look at me, look at me, look at me. They have to keep upping the ante. And, it's also a little bit about, he who has the gold makes the rules. And we got a lot of money talking. Yeah, it doesn't look good. It makes me wonder, like, how high can they up the ante before something explodes with this one?
Yeah, I think it feels like it's about to explode. Here's another tweet from the president. Hundreds of Iranian protesters. He was already attacking our embassy and preparing for additional hits in other locations. Iran has been nothing but a problem for many years. Let this serve as a warning that if Iran strikes any Americans or American assets we have, and it goes off. It's not an original thought for him because, as we said before, Project for a New American Century targeted Iran in 1997. Mm-hmm. So they didn't get it done. But now they're intent on getting it done. And this shows the continuity of the presidency because there's always an ever-increasing military budget. And, you might not view Donald Trump as a neocon. And so many people forget he was a Democrat longer than he was a Republican. But still, he's carrying out the same agenda now. He's fulfilling that agenda by setting it up so that Iran will be taken down. And then really it comes back to Syria because that's the other country of the 7 named, the only other one that has not been, leveled, so to speak, and taken over. And here you see targeted 52 Iranian sites representing the 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago. So they're, playing on the past, and it's such an ego game, an ego trip. And so, playing on patriotism as well. And, when you look at it, and I was going to do a video just talking about how hilarious it is that, if we're looking at things from a perspective of ego, and a lot of people don't even understand the ego, the whole concept of ego. But, these politicians, they just exude ego and playing on other people's ego. And they play on patriotism and how great we are. We're the best in the world, and then you'll have people of an older generation. A lot of them were brought up so much that way that they just can't see anything else at all. They don't recognize the chess game that's going on. And I did a video on the second channel talking about the fact that this is really a chess game that's going on. And, whether we're talking about the USA or Iran, they're still all chess pieces. They're all chess pieces because the controllers are beyond all these politicians that we see.
They are, yeah. And it is a lot about ego, and it's a lot about, us keeping an eye on the past and what's happened in the past, so we can maybe, hopefully, at least mentally navigate what they're up to now and not buy into the media hype. And also another thing is to try to not fall into fear, because with human beings, if we're in a place of fear, we're so easily controlled.
And, check this out too. 52 Iranian sites. So Donald Trump has 52 targets in mind, including the Iranian culture. So, we had talked about the artifacts, the historical artifacts that could have given us a deeper clue into our true history that were destroyed in Afghanistan and especially in Iraq. Because Iraq is, what was Sumeria. So, it's covering up the tracks and traces of the Anunnaki and of what happened here. And, if you look at Persia, there is a ton of history there. So again, they have to take out and destroy these missing links that will give us clues, if we were able to actually see them, as to what has really gone on our planet historically. But that's part of this whole thing too. That is most definitely a part of it. They want to cover up our real history.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things that I wasn't aware of and that kept me from waking up. And one of them was the Sumerian tablets. I really think that they need to have those in like mainstream school. That should be our history, our true history. If it was, then people, well, I guess that's why they don't want it in the schools, because, right now with what they have, they keep people asleep.
Yeah, there's a lot of serious issues, going on. And so, this is all about, pushing the rhetoric. Mm-hmm. Do we believe it? I don't think anybody here really believes it. People are waking up. Now, here you see China replaces top official in Hong Kong in first major reshuffle since the protest started. Protesting can work. It really can work, but it takes a massive amount of people to make change. And this is still ongoing in Hong Kong. And, China, to me, is the system that is the most, it's one of the most terrifying systems, because there's things like, there's prisoners in the system that, if they need an organ, they just take it out of the prisoner to like a party member. It's a horrible system. You can't even speak up there. As we know, they have a lot of camps, where like the Uyghur people who are Muslim, and they're being re-educated. It's a scary system. So, of course, the system in the U.S., is flawed as well, but there is talk that this Chinese system is really what they want the whole world to be like. And then scarier yet, really, is the Islamic world, where they're beheading people left and right. And Islam literally does mean to submit, to submit to the will of Allah. And I got so much work to do with videos. I got so much to cover, because there's so much to uncover, but there's so much happening right now geopolitically, and then also with like the fires in Australia, which are just getting worse and worse and worse. And, there's a lot of suspicion there as to what the real agenda is Perhaps the same thing that's happening in California. Perhaps it, is the same, the same motivating factor going on in both locations. And if we jump over here, no, we're not going to talk about him with the political advertisement there. Activists across the U.S. and the world protest a possible war with Iran. This is what it takes. The problem is we don't have enough people that are awake. But people are waking up. This is what we have to do. So this is Times Square. What we need to see is actually millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and eventually billions recognizing the system for what it is. And again, goes back to the Tower of Babel. Who really are the gods? Because it's obvious they don't have our best interest in mind.
No, they don't. And, I really, not that this warms my heart to see people out here like this, but I do see young people waking up. And that's an absolutely beautiful thing. I think I started to wake up right around 2012, 2013 when I lost a very dear friend to the medical system. Them thinking they have all the answers, and when really, they're the ones who make you sick, keep you sick. And right now is a really, really good time for people to start taking back your health, take back your personal power to get out of the system, or at least not need the system. We don't want to be in the system right now.
No, and the system has to change. So these rallies were organized by the Act Now to Stop War and End Racism, the Answer Coalition. So that's the name of this group. So maybe some people want to check that out more as well. It's the common people that get sent off to war. It's people that feel like, well, they'll pay for my schooling afterwards. They'll help me get into a good job afterwards, or, even thinking that they're being patriotic, that they're doing something really good. But really, they're just carrying out the wishes of these bloodthirsty corporations. And last night's video, when we were talking about all this, by the way, it was demonetized and then confirmed, so they're saying, you're not supposed to talk about these things.
Right. There, we know when we're onto something when they demonetize things and then confirm it, or, they actually cancel a certain account and this and that. We know we're on to them, and they make it really actually quite easy for us, in a way to figure them out. But the problem is you end up kind of getting choked a little bit, but that's okay. We're here anyway. You guys are waking up. I see the crowd's getting bigger, and that is an absolute blessing.
Yeah, so many people can't stand Jane Fonda, and other people love her, but, she was, of course, doing her thing as well, and so one of the statements she made is that the younger people should know that all the wars have been fought since you have been born have been all over oil. Oil's a part of it, but there is more to the picture, too, as we were pointing out, and, Iran, like I was saying, is a very interesting country, and, it goes back to Persia. And it's got so much just amazing artifacts and history and a lot of clues to our ancient history. And you know what? They just don't want that getting out. So, yeah, Ruby says War of the Gods. That's really what's going on here. And when we talk Anunnaki, it means, those from whom the heavens came. It doesn't mean it was just one particular race, group, or faction. Because if we look at it, there was always a lot of wars amongst the gods. And then they started to, use humans, as their cannon fodder, and it's still going on.
And on and on and on. And here we are. We have all of this going on in the news, which is quite concerning. With me, I don't know if they're putting out like a frequency of fear, but there's a lot of things I do to try to shake the inner anxiety, and today it's just not working. And I don't know if any of you are feeling that little underlying nagging anxiety feeling at all.
Well, I think that has something to do with the gray skies, and then we add the 5G into the mix. It's a control grid matrix. That's really what it is. So, as it says here, people are ready to resist another pointless war however we can. it's not really pointless from their point of view. It's another way to keep us separated, to cover up tracks, to control resources, and to provide a food source for these demonic beings of sorts that are really ruling us. As we have talked about Loosh as well. Think about that. Think about everything is energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes form. And life feeds off of life in many different ways. And, if we feel how strong emotions can be, when your emotions are riled up, your hormones are going. A lot of you guys know about things called adrenochrome. It's a real thing here, and it's sad but true. War, the very act of war and terror and suffering and all that, it creates a food source for certain types of beings.
Which is really, really horrible, and that's another reason you're here to wake people up to. That one's really, that's a hard pill to swallow, that one. But you know what? It's probably the most important one that we all need to accept and know that these horrible things are happening, because the more we sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not, the more they get away with it. And not just that, there's all kinds of other suffering and abuse. Then they create this loosh. And I'm just curious, I did see a lot of people in chat saying that they kind of had this underlying cruddy feeling today. What if we were to, like, after the show, maybe sit down and sort of meditate on just being in a happier state of mind, if that would help push back the frequencies, just push back at the frequency, just a thought.
Definitely. I think people got to get out there. We have to get out there before they do anything else. As we're seeing, New York, protests in New York, protest in Denver, protest over here in Philadelphia, in Massachusetts, California, the UK, Canada. The average person, I really don't think, wants war. Now, there are some people that are just negative, and perhaps they are demonically influenced themselves, and don't have a soul to speak in some ways, because there are some people that will feed off of these situations. We see it all the time. You see, like, when there's power outages and things like that, which, be aware of the possibility of the grid going down now, guys, most definitely, because whether it's truly a revenge attack or whether it's a false flag, because that's very real as well. For those of you that have done research into false flags, they've been used for like over 100 years. We're talking going way back to the sinking of the Lusitania. It goes way back. There's been false flags going way, way back at critical points in history. How odd it was that the driver back in World War I took the Archduke down the wrong street. Was that really an accident? I mean, I don't think so. They always look for triggers. So here you see Hezbollah warns Iraqi security forces to stay away from U.S. bases starting Sunday evening. So that sounds pretty ominous. So perhaps there's something in the making starting tomorrow night.
Yeah, it could be, and we definitely have like the planetary alignment for things to get a little bit hotter. And that's going to start from within, actually, us as individuals. We should start looking at our inner issues, and that frequency is going to climb up and up and up, and it's going to move into like social destabilizing. And then, this other destabilizing things we have going on in this frequency that's occurring now, it's only going to get stronger, which means we need to get stronger and be more positive and actually just simply smiling. Like if you catch yourself not smiling, smile, because you're changing your frequency right away. And hopefully just by doing that or meditating, you'll keep you and your loved ones, maybe even your town, a little bit safer.
So, be very aware of that. It's time to double check your preps, just because it pays to be safe, so just plan on anything that could happening as far as, is your gas tank 3/4 empty, then maybe it's a good idea to keep it topped off. Do you have an extra gas pail or that you could fill up, things like that. Food, maybe it's time to stock up a little bit more. So, double check. Do you have candles? Do you have, auxiliary lights? How's the generator? Have you tested that? Because the likelihood that something could happen is obviously increasing. Whether whoever's doing it, regardless, if it be it a false flag or be it something that's actually being done in retaliation, it's a good idea just to double check and then check with your neighbors, your family, your loved ones. Just mention to them, are you guys ready? In case something happens. We haven't lived in a time, I mean, there might be a couple of us that are still from the World War II era. But, air raids, sirens, things like that, that's pretty freaky. And over in the United States, we have been so blessed to not be hit by any of these things. But, the people growing up over there in the Middle East, they're used to these things. And it's just so horrible that people have to go through life like this. But definitely double check your supplies, all those things. Maybe if you were thinking about bringing the car in for service, maybe make sure you get it serviced as soon as possible. All those little things. We need to stay as prepared as possible. And you see over here, as soon as this reloads, south front, for the first time in history, Iran unfurls the red flag of revenge over the Holy Dome. We've never seen this happen before. There's been a lot of strikes. When you think about it, Israel has slapped Iran in the face time and time and time again. And honestly, Iran never really did much in retaliation because Israel has the Samson option. Do you guys know what that is? Do you guys remember the Samson option? Do you?
No, what's the Samson option? No idea.
Basically they do have nuclear weapons, and if push came to shove and they were going to lose a conventional war, they would use their nuclear weapons to obliterate the other side.
Oh, wow.
So, that throws fear out there, and that's probably part of why, Israel could bombard Iran, and Iran will retaliate by shooting 2 rockets into a pond.
Nice. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
It's exactly that, because they know they'll be toasted. And it's kind of like a bully situation when you look at it. And it's good to see so many people out there. I saw Rosemary out there. We have about 4 different people that are in contact with me that are in Australia and giving me info on what they are seeing. And Australia needs our prayers big time. This is big, and there are the thought that basically it's the same scenario as California, and a lot of you people are very familiar with certain agendas and some numbers that follow these agendas, and perhaps because Australia and New Zealand have been thought of as being good places to be in these times in so many ways. And so many of the elite of the world, billionaires, have been buying up New Zealand and Australia. So it's curious that these fires are everywhere. They're so hard, they're so intense down the southeast coast. But you got to wonder. You really got to wonder about everything that's going on.
Well, you do. And I was reading someone's email this morning from Australia that she sent you, and I'm sorry I forgot your name if you're listening. It was heart-wrenching, the things that are going on there. These things are inhumane. They're horrible. And I don't know. I don't know what else to do besides expose it for what it is. And I was thinking maybe we get these emails together and kind of, get back with the people and make sure it's okay we share some of this information and get this word out there, because from what I can see on the mainstream, none of the things that are being reported to us, that's not being covered on the mainstream media at all. And that's just not fair. And that's the game that they play. They play, little man has no voice, ha ha ha, and it's just wrong. It is so wrong. So yeah, if you're in Australia, you have information, keep sending it, and we're collecting it and kind of looking through it. And really right now, all we can do is send our blessings and our prayers. And believe me, I am so sending blessings and prayers to you, Miss Rosemary, and anyone else who's contacted us.
Well, yeah, one of them said that it has absolutely nothing to do with climate change. Yeah, not at all. It's coming from the leadership, really, is where it's coming from. So we see here, Iran general steps out of Soleimani's shadow to lead proxies, and so, one falls, another one takes the place, and that's obviously going to be the case. Over here, you see. There we go, the Daily Star. Now, many will probably disagree with this. Iran war would need millions of men, like invading Germany in World War II. Now, Admiral Lord West urged U.S. officials who want war with Iran to be careful what you wish for, as he said, branded the situation very highly dangerous. A Royal Navy admiral has warned the U.S. about the invasion of Iran. It would need millions. It have to be comparable to the occupation of Germany. He might be still, he's an admiral, so obviously, he knows what he's talking about. But in today's world, so much of the operations are carried out by drones more all the time, not even from pilots and planes so much, anymore. And then, of course, you have all types of missiles and weaponry, and, we've even been told that, we have tested lasers mounted on jets now, and we have stuff that would blow people's minds that's like a Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So, when will we see that stuff? Who knows? Maybe this will be a trial run for some of that stuff. As we know, there is so much money in war, and that's so sad, but it is very, very true. So he is anyway saying that you don't want to do this.
No, this is kind of a really ugly thing we have going on, and I'm not sure really what to do about it. I think I'm a little bit numb. I'm a little bit in denial that this is actually happening, because there's a sense of urgency that I think should be there that's not there. But I do think that's my own denial. I don't know if anyone else is feeling that, because obviously you can look at the headlines and say, okay, this is getting serious, this is getting heated. At the same time, you don't want to think that anything's actually going to happen. It's like we're at that spot now.
Yeah, lots of great comments and stuff. And so John Hepping says, I have wondered if all this mass immigration being imported into the Western nations has something to do with war, importing cannon fodder. I was going to, let's see if I could find this one. So hundreds of young migrants sleeping on the streets. Interesting, like Nostradamus had a prophecy too, where he talked about the horrible war being prepared in the West, and the following year the pestilence is going to come. And so great, and it sounds like a horrible pestilence that some people have equated to, what would be fallout after nuclear war. Some people think it might be the Ebola virus. There's a lot of conjecture on that, if it is the case. But we know they've been preparing this horrible war in the West for a long time, and it's interesting the way he talked about that and said that. And, I had said last night, too, we know Albert Pike, 33rd degree Mason, talked about 3 world wars back in 1871. Who knows how far back this stuff really goes, all these plans. We don't really know exactly. But Nostradamus did talk about basically Muslim people coming into Europe, hiding bombs under their coats or their vests, and then setting them off. And he actually talked about some cities in France being blown up with what sounds to be more like, maybe dirty nukes or something along those lines. And I forget which one it was. He said would experience that twice. So, all this, I think it's all part of a much bigger plan that's been underway. So, how do we stop it? I think they already wanted it to happen, honestly. I really do. I think they already wanted it to happen, but perhaps we've already delayed it a few times because we're waking up and more people are taking to the streets and protesting and saying we don't buy your bullshit. It's total bullshit. We recognize that. Here you see British Navy to accompany UK flagged vessels through the Straits of Hormuz. Look for an action to happen there, because you could basically pin off a huge chunk of the oil supply heading out into the greater part of the world from there and cause just such a disruption to so many. That would be playing one of your biggest cards. So I do think that would be one of the things to look for.
I know I keep seeing these things move forward, and I just keep wondering, okay, so this is a pretty big escalation. How are they going to up the ante on this? Oh, wow. Then they do something, then it's like, how are they going to up the ante on that? And then something happens like, oh, wow. And it's just all coming to a peak and a point. And this is the part where, we really need to stand strong inside of ourselves, not panic, because that panic is going to create a whole lot of ability for them to control us through fear.
And so the comment wasn't Nostradamus a Freemason? I don't know if he was or he wasn't, but I wouldn't doubt that he was. But that doesn't mean I would doubt his prophecies, because that would make me think it's part of a bigger plan that's been in the works for a long, long time. And, when we're think about technology, and I brought this up before. We have the legends of Atlantis and Lemuria, and we have the Wars of the Gods. And in the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Indian scriptures, they describe it. It sounds like Star Wars happening here on the planet. What if, people survived by going inside the planet and did not lose their technology, but maintained their technology? Whereas we started off again after the Younger Dryas events, basically back in a Stone Age, level existence, they would have still been way past where we are now. Yeah. And so then now, 12,000 years later, where are they now? They would have technology that, perhaps they could even play with the laws of time and space, and perhaps they, could change things. Perhaps they could manipulate our reality at such a high degree.
They could. So we have to look at it from that perspective. Like, we need to assume that, well, at least I like to assume, well, what if somebody knows more than me? Then how is that going to look like? It's just all things are just going to change. I feel it in my bones. And the more awake and aware we are, the more understanding that we have, the better chance we're going to have. That's my opinion.
Definitely. And so Mark says it goes way back to the Anunnaki. Northern Africa was nuked. Yeah, there's a lot of areas that were nuked. The Sinai was in India. There's still areas that have high levels of radiation. I really think that the same thing happened here out west in Nevada and Arizona. We've seen so many, in California too, we've seen so many ruins through the desert that to me it feels like these are battle sites. And I feel like there were actually pretty high level peaceful people here that were wiped out by the ones that are not so peaceful, but are probably still in charge right now. Underground? Perhaps underground, perhaps in the ground, and definitely undercover, but still manipulating things.
Totally manipulating things. That's the information that I got yesterday when I was sort of kind of remote viewing in the history. It's like there was this peaceful calmness about that area, and then it got hit really hard and really sudden. And then it makes me wonder, oh no, what if I'm channeling the future here too? But.
Yeah, most definitely. So, Mr. Truth Seeker, will they strike Sunday evening? It seems like that's been telegraphed. We'll have to see if that's the case. Yeah, nuclear quantum lasers, pew, pew, pew. I remember when John Lennon was shot, and because I was alive then, and I took part in a prayer vigil, that when he did get shot, and it was beautiful, and everybody was singing that, all we are saying, let's give peace a chance. it's always the peaceful ones like that that get assassinated. It happens every single time. Gandhi, Martin Luther King. We could go on and on, with that. People that really push peace are definitely right in the target. They're in the what's that? Oh, Leah Michelle thinks that I couldn't be more wrong about our POTUS. I have absolutely zero doubts about him. Zero. I watched a video today that our brother David Lewis sent me, and it was basically of a church service with him, and you could just see the ego coming off of him. So, and anybody that has that much ego, that much pride, that much arrogance, they're not good at the core. They're nowhere near good. So, I think that's wishful thinking. Just, like with the whole Q phenomenon, to me, it hit me all the time that Q was obviously part of the Trump regime. I mean, how could you not know it's part of the Trump regime? It's obvious, but it's that desire. I mean, and a lot of people do have that desire. We want to believe that, somebody is really there for us. But unfortunately, they never get put in power. Only just the ones that the power brokers control get put into power. So, whether we're talking about, President Trump now or Obama before him, both Bushes, Clinton, they're all on the same team. It's just an illusion that there's any real difference between them, because they're all really working for these same power brokers ultimately. Here we see Iran will punish Americans wherever they are within its reach. So that's the Iranian Guards commander. So that's, again, because of what's happening now in that strike, you, me, your kids, our kids, our parents, everybody is in the crosshairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are. I mean, there's no prejudice when it comes to that. We are the little pawns. We are the ones who are being played. And believe me, I wanted to think that there was something wonderful about this Q person too. I did. I wanted to believe so bad that there was hope, but as long as I stayed in that mindset, I wasn't doing anything for myself. I just had to look at it for what I could see, and I could just see a lot of information coming out, but no real backing. I mean, they make it sound really good. They made it sound excellent. And I did have a lot of hope, but I had to just face the fact that I have to watch out for me. We can only be responsible for ourselves first.
Most definitely. And if Trump was really a peacemaker, why is the military budget going up so highly? Mm-hmm. And as we talked about before, there's 5.5 million people that are going to starve in the South Sudan. And all it would take is 270 million to keep that from happening. But have you seen him allocate money to do that? Mm-hmm. But yet we keep increasing the military budget. So, I mean, it's obvious. He's no peacemaker. He's no peacemaker at all. He's part of the problem. And here you see out of global conflict news, KC-130s and C-130s flying out of the Persian Gulf like crazy. Mm-hmm. Most likely military equipment being deployed as we speak. And over here, see what else is coming. Unconfirmed reports that the airstrike that took place on the border of Iraq and Syria was done by Israeli Air Force using 2 F-35 jets. Unconfirmed, but if it's true, it means Israel's gloves are off. And see, Israel and Israel and Saudi Arabia are most definitely aligned in this. Many people know of the evils of the House of Saud, and hopefully most people know.
Yeah, hopefully most people know, but it's about us being on this channel and waking people up, and you guys, spreading the word that we're helping to wake people up. Yeah, so I'm really happy to see the numbers. I'm really happy to see the comments today. It warms my heart. I really feel like I'm getting somewhere. I mean, we're getting somewhere, all of us together, everybody in the chat, me, you. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of resistance as far as what's truly going on.
Yeah, and so I mean, I saw a comment about Trump is fighting the deep state. You know, we've been hearing that the whole time.
Right.
We've been hearing all these military tribunals. We've been hearing all these sealed documents and stuff.
Yeah.
And we have seen a few things come out, like Epstein, obviously. There's been a few, but there's some pawns that have been sacrificed, nothing but pawns.
Right.
You know, we don't see Hillary in jail. We don't see Obama in jail. We don't see, you know, the Bushes in jail. I mean, the Bush family is as dark as any family that we've seen. It's horrible. The Bush family has ties going back to I.G. Farben and the Nazis and making the cyanide for the gas chambers. And, you know, as I said that, I won't try to monetize this one.
Right.
You know, but it's true. You know, Pope John Paul II worked for I.G. Farben as a salesman. So, you know, the Pope worked for the company that made cyanide for the gas chambers for the Nazis. Prescott Bush, you know, he's a skull and bonesman. Same thing with the two Georges, and, you know, they've done their occult rituals. They're all, you know, Illuminati. And as Mish Gleason says, they're all literally related. Yeah, they are. This is the same bloodlines, guys. These are the same bloodlines. Yeah, you know, Bush Family Plan 9/11. Yeah, the Neocon Manifesto. PNAC, Project for a New American Century, 1997 was written. And it said we needed a new Pearl Harbor to get the people to go ahead and have wars against 7 countries, including Iran, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And so it's playing out. It's playing out right now. So if anybody has any doubts about President Trump, what they're doing is they're taking people that are somewhat awake and they're giving them hope.
Yeah.
But really what they're going to do is they're going to squash that hope as they fulfill their ultimate plan, which is to, you know, go ahead and fulfill that and take over Iran and Syria and probably lead us into World War III. But as the same case with the Anunnaki, you know, when there was too much human population, and Enlil, you know, who was, you know, in charge over here, you know, he was good with getting rid of us. He didn't care about us. You know, we were too much of a pain. We made too much noise. Let them all die. And then Enki, Ea, decided he's going to save some since he created us, or he created the hybrid that became us. Or, you know, I don't even know if I really buy that so much. I think it was genetic interference, but somehow I feel that, like when we look at the Chinese myths and some of the other older myths, in the past, humans had godlike powers, and we lived a long time. So I'm thinking that we were tinkered with, and our DNA was cut off, as we see that we have so much DNA that's so-called junk DNA. And I think that we could attribute to turning humans into slaves to work the gold mines. Mm-hmm. So I kind of view it as it wasn't necessarily an upgrade. I think it was a downgrade. I think it was them manipulating us, dumbing us down, basically shutting down our third eye, keeping our third eye shut down with fluoride in the water, with different frequencies that we're constantly bombarded with, and with a belief system, you know, that tells you not to develop your intuitive abilities, because, you know, suffer not a witch to live. Anybody that's trying to develop their intuition could be burned at the stake, you know. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. A very long time. It's part of the whole system.
It is. And, you know, the medical system is very much involved, because as our DNA, our so-called junk DNA, goes online, we have things that happen to us that we don't really understand, you know, and it might be, you know, not sleeping. It could be chills. It could be all kinds of things, you know, that might happen emotionally that could send you to a doctor, and then they're going to give you a pill to help you cover up this symptom of not sleeping or your mind racing, when in reality, this is our abilities coming online, but we have nowhere. We really don't have an outlet. We don't really understand what's happening. But, you know, I can promise you, from someone who has dealt with this for, you know, like 20 years of her life, they had me like numb. And it wasn't until I got off of all that stuff that I really started to come online and understand my abilities. And through energy work, I'm able to deal with them. And even though I'm a lot more sensitive, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm alive. I'm not numb anymore. And these are things that the medical system has done. They're catching us like in fishing nets.
Yeah, a lot of people are waking up, more and more people all the time. I could just see it in the comments. It's like most of you guys are now getting fully awake to everything that's going on, and a lot of talk about Trump's uncle and Tesla, and that's real. That's true as well. Everything is so interconnected. So, be on the lookout for Sunday night. It's just because of what they had said. There could be things happening on Sunday night. Here we see out of USNI News, U.S. fleet created to counter Russian subs, now fully operational. So there's been a lot of upgrades going on. And, considering the fact that the U.S. spends as much as the next 10 nations combined, you would hope that they would get something for their money. Although a lot of the money's been funneled off into Black Ops and the Space Force probably as well for a long time. Rumsfeld came out back in, 2001, I think. He came out and said, oh, guys, we're missing, I forget how many trillions of dollars. And, we still don't know where it went.
It's just gone. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. Just gone, and nobody questions anything.
Yeah, most definitely. So, this is interesting to see. And remember, Russia now has those hypersonic missiles that could strike so fast you can't block them, supposedly. But again, when Admiral Byrd went down to kick some Nazi butt in Antarctica, he got his butt kicked by flying saucers. And that's an actual fact. It is a fact. And then we had the flyover of Washington by the Nazi saucers as well back in the 50s, just a show of power. So more and more people are waking up to all these things. They really are. And Chris is talking about Dane Wigginton's. He's done a lot of work uncovering what's going on in the skies, most definitely. And there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different agendas all wrapped up into why we see so much gray skies. And I do think initially it started out being more of a weather control thing, but I think there's a lot of other components to it now, most definitely.
There is a lot of components to it, and I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's being laid on thick.
Okay, so great. ISIL observations. Rumsfeld made that announcement on September 10th, 2001. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, boom. And George Bush was holding a book, reading to some kids, and it was upside down.
It was upside down. Like, oh my gosh, that was so ridiculous. Wasn't he reading My Pet Goat too?
Yeah, something like that. It was hilarious. But it was just saying he knew he knew he was going to get the word because the whole thing was orchestrated, and so. He's there, acting like he's having a good time with the little kids. And my ex-brother-in-law went to Yale with him. And he said that, he said, I'll tell you one thing. He said, the guy's not running the country. He said he's a flaming idiot. But he said, he was actually a lot of fun. He said he was just a wise ass, smart ass, just class clown partier that was stoned most of the time. And he said he was actually just an awful lot of fun to be around, but he said there's absolutely no way this guy has anything to do with running the country. Not at all.
No, not him. I mean, I could totally see him as the party guy on, what was that movie we just watched? Euro Trip. This isn't where I parked my car. I could see him growing up like that, and nobody like that ran our country. He's a puppet. He follows orders just like the rest of them are following orders right now. So I think being aware of that is really super important.
Yeah, and so I think as soon as we start saying things like, if we're pointing out Democrats or pointing out Republicans, recognize both parties are bought and paid for. Mm-hmm. So they're bought and paid for. And, as long as we constantly point fingers at just either the Democrats or the Republicans, then we're in the system. And the ones that control the system, they're good with that. Fight with each other all day long. That's fight. that's what they want. They want us to just fight it with each other. As soon as we recognize, oh, wait a minute, okay, so the powers that control the Democratic Party are also controlling the Republican Party, but they're just making it look like, both of the parties actually have power when neither party has power. They're controlled by these bloodlines. There's a reason why all the presidents are related. It's the same bloodlines that we could trace all the way back to Syria. We could trace it back to the Roman Empire and all the way back to Syria as well.
Yeah, and when you watch Congress and those guys, when does anything actually get done? Everything's either in for a vote, or if something does get done, they just put out another piece of paper saying, no, you're not. And it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Nothing gets done.
So the Mossad chief bragged about the possibility of assassinating Soleimani just months before his death, and then he gets assassinated. And many people recognize the Israel part of this whole structure and story, because that is part of this whole thing. And, we could see the modus operandi if we look in the Old Testament. And a lot of people don't want to recognize that, but it's there. There's a reason why Christ said to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, you're doing the work of your father, the devil. Not the same quote unquote God that Christ was trying to talk about, but the system is the same system. It hasn't changed. It's still in effect. So the same people, the same bloodlines are still running the show 2,000 years later. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that. So, this is a bigger play. It's a bigger drama than most people recognize.
Yeah, old writer never said they'll never do anything. Yeah, it's just back and forth, back and forth. But, this is where it gets interesting, where, Michael can take parts of the Bible and pick it apart and then parallel it with what's going on now. And he's so well read. I just love to listen to him because it helps reveal another layer of bullcrap that's going on when you can see what was written in the Bible and parallel it to things that are going on now. It's important that we see that. It does help open the eyes that we are in like a matrix. We are being played. And the more we understand that, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, definitely. Everything is ass backwards, honestly. You have to recognize that and put a little thought into that. If Satan is running the show and has been running the show since Christ's time and way before that, then recognize the system that dominates the world is quote unquote Satan's system. And so it's all under, and Satan just means the adversary, which we do have an adversary. They're the ones that are manipulating us into killing ourselves. So that's the bottom line. It's the ones that are manipulating us into killing ourselves. And then they sit back and laugh about it and get richer and fatter and probably just joke about it. Honestly, it's that whole thing. You guys ever read Protocols of the Elders of Zion? I don't know if anybody in the chat has ever heard of that before. I know I did a video on that a while ago as well. And of course, a lot of people recognize, the Khazari influence in things. Yeah, Rothschild much? Exactly, Yeah, you guys you're getting it. You're definitely getting it. I see that. It's good. So knowledge is spreading. Damaged cars and swarm of U.S. choppers. First footage of rocket attacks on Iraqi facilities housing Americans emerge. And we heard what I think was some pretty big choppers going today. I've heard from a lot of you guys too that you've heard a lot of military activity in the air.
We heard choppers earlier. I didn't get out there quick enough to see exactly what it was, but yeah, kind of curious if you guys have seen anything out there. And I did pull up this thing online that said certain military things are in the air now, and I don't know what any of that means, but maybe we'll go over that in a minute.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of assets going on, being utilized Rockets land close to U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. No known casualties. And again, I think it's kind of obvious to see if we look at this. It happens all the time with Israel. So, Hezbollah or the Iranian side will do something, and Israel will respond, like 20-fold or 100-fold. So whether it was like, there's an attack by Hezbollah, and sometimes I really doubt that there is. It's just, they need a reason to go ahead and inflict a little misery. And so maybe like 2 people are injured or something, and then the counterattack by Israel kills like 79, and maims another 200. And then Iran or Hezbollah, will go ahead and respond by shooting 2 rockets into a pond, so to speak. It's almost like saving face. Like, we got to do something, but we don't want to, get killed. So we're not stupid because we know we can't match. But they're trying to stand up, but they're not really standing up. And, an Iran war, I don't think would last too long. Again, it's just about, does Russia do nothing? And does China do nothing? Can they afford to do nothing? That's the big question. So Marine Corps Crisis Response Force will remain in Baghdad. They were going to be pulled out, but of course they're staying now. How many times do we hear, we're pulling all the troops out of Afghanistan? We heard that from 2 different presidents. It never happens. There's been troops in Afghanistan, either us or the Russians, for like 50 years now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's more stuff going on and on and on, whereas nothing really, really happens. And that's because the people running the country aren't the people that are running the country. They're taking orders from higher up. And it's really, really important that we recognize that, and we understand that, like when you go to vote, you're not really accomplishing anything. You're just going to vote, and you're, kind of following along. But, I stopped voting a long time ago because I knew it's like supporting the beast system. It made me sick because I knew that my vote, honestly, doesn't matter. That's already scripted. That's already decided way before I get there.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like we got to do something. So, I've shared with you guys, I'm actually registered as a libertarian because I feel that was closer to what the intent was, or at least the intent of the good people that were trying to found this country, even though we recognize that this country still has been an extension of the British Empire, which itself was an extension of the Roman Empire, which itself goes back to the overlord situation. But, the ideas, to me, of the libertarian ideas are the ones I embrace. I think, as far as socially, people should be able to do whatever they want as long as it doesn't intrude on somebody else. I don't care. Hopscotch around the neighborhood, well, let's not say the neighborhood, hopscotch around the backyard naked. Yeah. So nobody can see you. That's fine. Backwards. Right. Whatever. Who cares? It doesn't, if it's not going to affect anybody in a negative way. But at the same time, there is no bigger threat than big government. There's no bigger threat to our freedom and our liberties. And we all should be able to have the, freedom to pursue our own way of life, our own way, without, the overlords coming down on us, without big government.
And it's not just big government. It's like our social acceptance policy of, walking this line to appease the family or appease your neighbors. I think a lot of things are going to get crumbled down on many levels, at a personal level, on a social level, on an economic level, and on a political level, and then on a country level. Things are going to get broken down this year. That's what the cards are showing. That's where everything seems to be lining up. And again, go back within yourself. You can take control of your own emotions, your own feelings. So at least you're not being controlled by anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I really have a thing with not wanting anybody telling me what I can or cannot do, so that's just inherent, because I believe in personal freedom. Most definitely. Here you see anti-war protesters rallying in New York. Trump, the people say no war on Iran. Yeah, we need more and more people to say that, to get out there, in bigger and bigger numbers. Now, me and Cindy, we could lead the one over in Death Valley here, the Death Valley protests. Yeah. And unfortunately, we'll be the only two here screaming, just us and maybe some burros. Yeah. But still, we need this. We need to wake people up. We do. And, they try to divide us through racism and through political, the political ideologies and through also the religions. And, do I believe in a higher power? Of course. I've felt the energy of higher power. Whether we view it as higher self, God, the angelic realms, I have no doubt that there's that there is a creative force. There's a method to this matrix that we live in it's just so obvious. It's fractal in nature, and consciousness is everything. Everything is consciousness. So it's time for us to take our power back, and we can do it by speaking up. British Navy to accompany U.S. flag vessels. Yeah, we were UK flag vessels. We talked about that. Over 100,000 march in southern India to protest citizenship law. So the protest dubbed the Million March was organized by an umbrella group of Muslim and civil society organizations. And what this is about this new law eases the path for non-Muslim minorities from neighboring Muslim majority nations of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan to gain Indian citizenship. So, the whole world has this problem, quote unquote, of facing, bigotry. And the division. It's really it's the division, and the Muslim Hindu situation has been a tense one, and thus we have Pakistan and India being formed as separate countries. After the British rule and all, in Pakistan majority Muslim, and India majority Hindu. But really, when you look at one of the things that I've been discovering a lot about is going as far back in our history in these areas, from Iran into Pakistan into India. This is one of the key areas that hides the mysteries of who we are and why society developed the way it did. I think there's a lot of info on the wars of the gods of the Anunnaki and the different factions within the Anunnaki fighting amongst each other. And I do think that's part of why they want to destroy Iran now. Because there's relics and there's key puzzle pieces that could be discovered as, if peace broke out and we could go in and discover, and look at some of the antiquities that they have there, and all that get put out into the internet and just give a lot of more clues to our history. And I think they want to go in and wipe it out. And I think that's part of it as much as really controlling resources.
Yeah, and it's that higher-minded perspective is where we need to look at things from. That's the smarter thing to do. They don't want us to have these higher-minded perspectives, because then we would know who's in control, and we would know more what to do, and we would know, or at least we would understand that we have the ability to not be controlled. Same thing when they came and they wiped out the Native Americans. There's a certain way about them. They knew certain things about the planet. They knew certain things about consciousness and spirit, where I think it was a threat to them. So they had to come in and wipe them out quickly and do it as quick and harsh and screw up that DNA as much as possible. So going forward, it would be really difficult to try to reclaim ourselves and who we are.
I think one of the reasons why they don't want us knowing that there's all sorts of extraterrestrials and interdimensionals is because it allows our religions to stay where they are, and still maintain control over us. Same thing with the political situation, It's all about divide and conquer. You guys get it. I see that. Most of you really understand what's going on here. Greece, Israel, and Cyprus signed landmark East Med gas pipeline deal despite Turkey's wrath. And again, we were talking about egos, and we're talking about Erdogan. This guy is definitely ego-centered, and as we said, he wants to, revive the Ottoman Empire and be the head of it. And he also wants to unite the whole Islamic world behind him. So, watch him, because even though there are handlers that control all these things, you still have big egos. And sometimes they don't do what the handlers want, and they do what they want to do, and they set off on their own path. And so most definitely I would keep an eye on anything that he does. And we've seen Netanyahu's bid for parliamentary immunity puts off his trial on hold for months. And to me, this is most definitely one of the more evil guys on the planet. Just by looking at him and his acts, this is not a nice guy. In no sense of the word at all. This is not a nice person. And so he has his own political issues, and things are being uncovered. And of course, again, it would most definitely take some of the heat off of him if Israel did get attacked and pulled into a big military conflict. People will forget about his, indiscretions.
Yeah, they would. How convenient is that?
And then also, guys, don't forget about this. Virginia, Governor Northam's proposed gun confiscation squad. Let's see. The coincidence with the timing, is it a coincidence at all? And so, the Democrats are playing out their part in this, and both sides have their part to play out. And so it's part of our purpose is to wake up and recognize that they're both playing out their parts in this big drama that we are watching right now. And, don't forget about that, because, obviously there's some estimates, about 500 million guns in the U.S., and there's 330 million people.
Yeah, which is, those are kind of good odds. I mean, there's plenty of guns.
Yeah, there is. But at the same time, and I was talking to a good friend in Texas about this, he was saying, there's too many of us with guns, that could stand up to anything. And that's true, but look at the tech now. Look at the technology. Because you'd be shooting at drones, you won't even see the drone coming. I mean, how often do we see, if you guys have ever seen any of those, videos when somebody's taken out, they're just driving away. They don't see anything coming. All of a sudden, boom, it's just blown up like that. You'll never see it coming, and that's that's the problem. And do you think there's more reasons why 40,000 more satellites are going up into the orbit this year? It's crazy. And nuclear quantum lasers, pew pew pew. They can take my ray gun when they pry it from my cold, dead, wet tentacle.
Oh, yummy.
And you want Cindy to go run away with you? I don't know. She likes guys with cold, dead, wet tentacles.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Raven says, can't invade, armed population, bullets from everywhere. 5G eliminates everything, no one to fight. And that's what people believe, that 5G is the end game, the true end game.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense that it could be. There's a lot of things that they've put in our bodies and in our minds and so on that if they were to activate these things could cause some trouble. And I think that's why it's so important to get a handle on our health.
Most definitely. And there is a real thing called chemcough. It's real. And a lot of people have Morgellons as well, which is probably, it's thought to spread that way. And we've touched on so many subjects. Like I said, I'll make sure to demonetize this because I don't think they actually look at a lot of the ones that are demonetized so much. Because I've demonetized one before, and then it just seemed like our numbers went way up. They went way up. It's like they try to control us through the money system. That's what they do. They try to starve us out.
Yeah, and if you guys don't mind double checking your subscription thing and make sure you're subbed, and as much as I I don't want to ask. I'm going to ask if you go take a look at Patreon and try to help us a little bit there. Just any little bit will help, because we do want to get the word out. I'm super encouraged to see how many people are in the chat today that just, oh my gosh, I feel so happy about that.
Yeah, it's great to see the numbers rise, because we got to recognize the false flags before they happen, and not get pulled into this. Joni Mamas, if you mention anything. Oh, yeah, but it's the same. There are some on the right too that don't get hit at all.
Right.
Not at all. If you look at it, their numbers are great. There's quite a few on the right that say things that boggle my mind. But then they're behind President Trump 100%. And, they're talking about true patriots and things like that. And they don't get censored, and they get tons of views, and they are monetized. So they're making a ton of money. So it's interesting, because I do think that if you really are promoting peace, then you're not promoting their agenda. If you're promoting division, either side, you're good. You're definitely good. Your numbers will be fine. And you'll be fine. So it's dangerous to promote peace, as, again, we've seen so many people meet their end promoting peace. Like, look at MLK. So, Virginia is just one. And there's others as well. And if this goes through and it becomes a big gun grab, you'll see a lot more. You'll see them in New York, and you'll see them in California, Oregon, Washington as well. I don't think you're going to see them in South Carolina. It's not going to happen. There's just a different mindset there, as well as some of the other really red states. So we shall see. We are most definitely in trying times, my friends. This is a roller coaster ride. Hang on tight.
Yeah, Chris says, yes, awaken those who can be awakened. Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do. Help wake people up, as far as their health is concerned, and just different ways to get you on a better track, a better road, a better way to be, so you're not dependent on that system. We want to be dependent on ourselves individually and each other. Just keep that safety net as close as possible. We don't want to need the system.
Yep. So, my friends, thank you for joining us once again. And again, if you're so inclined, please do join us over on either Patreon or Ko-Fi as well. And we look forward to doing this all again with you guys really soon. As always, stay prepared, man. Be prepared for the grid to go out. Be prepared for anything, because anything really could happen.
And we do. We love you guys so much. Thank you for a wonderful turnout. It's been a lot of fun.
As always, my friends, God bless and namaste.
Namaste. Oh, thank you, Zeke in Canada. Thank you.
Namaste, brother.